Howdy folks, Moose here. I'm in gorgeous Madera Canyon, place I've been coming to for decades, Santa Rita's Lodge, which has hosted me for a long time. And I'm here for the birds. Most importantly, the hummingbirds. I did a video about how I do this stuff a couple years back. A lot has changed. I have changed. I want to share with you how I'm now photographing hummingbirds with the current technology, because it really makes a massive difference. The biggest thing is the fun factor goes way up, keeper weight goes way up, and the frustration goes way down. Now, one thing I want to make sure you understand is the way that I like to tell the story of the hummingbird is to have that wing not frozen. I want the hum to be in that photograph, so I want the wings blurred. But they're flying gems. I want that color to come out. So those two very important parameters in the story I want to tell visually is why I'm sharing this information and the rig I've got going. Now it's going to be kind of a lengthy video. It's going to be two parts. One's on the technology and the other's on the biology. So let's start with the technology. What do you see here? Well, I've got the Benro Mach 3 tripod with the small rig fluid head. That's what's supporting the rig. One of the biggest difference now compared to just a couple years ago is everything is smaller, lighter, compact, more maneuverable than it ever was before, and that's made a huge difference. Now the centerpiece for all this is the Nikon Z9 with the 400 4.5 with the 1.4 teleconverter. I'm doing everything with autofocus, using auto area F critter mode. It just works so phenomenally. It's just amazing. Then you'll probably notice I've got these guys here. Don't have two big white things here anymore. I've got these small little gorgeous ProPhoto A10s with their diffuser domes attached. I'm shooting everything manual when it comes to the flash. Camera is shooting aperture priority. One important part of the theory that you need to understand has to do with flash and flash exposure. There are three things, okay, that really govern flash exposure. One is flash to subject distance, two is the aperture, and three is ISO. Those are the three things that we can use to change the exposure when working manually. Now, why am I telling you that? Because you got to make sure you understand that everything I'm talking about, those three things are got to be in the background of, why did Moose tell me that? Oh yeah, those three things: flash to subject distance, aperture, and ISO. All right, so I've got my gear. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit down, and you are the hummingbird feeder where I'm gonna be photographing the hummers. What I do is I'm gonna point the lens right at that, and I'm going to focus. Now, some people are saying, why are you using the Z9 rather than the Z8? One very important thing. So with the Z9, when I manually focus, you'll see a bar come across the bottom with infinity to macro mode. But you also see in between an actual linear distance read out. So in my case, when I'm at my feeder and I'm photographing the closest flower to me, all right, it says 9.2 feet. Why is that important? Well, remember, hey, you're late. You're supposed to be here during the introductions. That's one of our subjects. That's the broadbill hummingbird. Yeah, the little feeder he's coming to, that's not standard when you buy the 400 4.5, just so you know. That's an add-on. Anyway, back to that flash thing, right? You have flash subject distance, aperture, and ISO. So the Z9, not the Z8, actually tells me 9.2 feet. That's really important. So what I'm going to do is again, put the camera down, focus on that bird feeder, and 9.2 feet is almost minimum focusing distance. I don't want to be quite at that distance. I want to have a little bit of wiggle room in front of it because the birds will come closer. And now with that, I'm going to lock down so it can't pan, right? It's going to be locked down. And then I'm going to aim my flash units at that flash, or that feeder. So I'm going to make sure the center hotspot, a line here. Then I use the word ProPhoto on the side, and I make sights. Now you're probably saying, it doesn't look like it's pointed right at the camera. That's because the camera I'm filming this, the Z8 that's filming this video, is closer to 9.2 feet. So I'm going to turn the knuckle, and I'm going to sight this, make sure it goes right to that feeder. Go there, do the same thing. Now the center spots of the light is going to now converge on my subject. Very important to understand that this is not for exposure. This light and these beautiful round lights of ProPhoto A10 with that diffuser, I want to wrap that little flying gem with light to bring out the color. That's what I'm always using flash for in my bird photography, is for color. This is no different. I'm not trying to freeze anything. I'm just trying to bring out the color. All right, so talk about some basic settings. The camera, the lens is set at f8. That's my aperture. Pretty much what I'm doing all the time, f8. ISO starts at 800, and I'll change it to 1600. I'll explain why in a second. The actual Pro Photos, depending on the time of day, I'm going to be around 4.2 to 5.1. That's the power, and I have them both set the same, so I have even light. I'm not trying to do ratios. I'm just bringing light in to bring the color out. And remember, angle of incident equals angle of reflection. So that's why I have two lights bouncing in, so the color and those birds, those feathers are meant to reflect color. Bring that back to me. Okay, so there's some of the basics. Now let's get back to the ISO question, because aperture, it is, right, f8. ISO, I'm going to start at 800 because I'm photographing the feeder U right now. And so that is the closest physically I'm going to be with these lights. Now I have a feeder on either side, so you can see them behind me. And there's actually 5 feeders, and there's one right in front of me that's closest, and there's 2 off to the side. So when I'm going to do that, I'm going to pan the camera this way. As soon as I do that, if I were to manually focus, I'm going to see that both those feeders are now 11 feet away. So 9.2 feet, 11 feet. So it's further away. It means the flash has to travel further. Since the aperture is going to be at f8, I'm at aperture priority. The camera's dealing with shutter speed. I want to keep that shutter speed about 1/125th or higher. So when I pivot, in order to get that same amount of light going to that bird, so I get the same illuminance from the color, I change the ISO to 1600. I don't have to change now anything else. I don't have to change the power ratios, the aperture. I just change it to 1600. Boom. I've got the luminance I want from that color. So it's kind of really just like slam dunk easy anymore, which is important because you got these birds going like crazy, and sometimes they're, getting in the way of the one you're going to photograph. So having this kind of a really standardized, simple system is really important. The other thing is, you got to understand that I'm photographing these Hummers and they're just free flying. You can see behind me, there's no boxes, there's no sweeps, there's nothing. They just come to the feeders as they want and they feed. All right, now, a couple of really amazing things that we can do with this system now. One is there's no more AA batteries. So I used to come with 44 AA batteries for the battery packs and the flash units. Now it's just one in each flash. So I have one and then an extra set. So they're in the charger, they're cooking until I come out, then I put new batteries here. I put a new battery in the Z9 because I shoot a lot of video, and that just, when you're shooting for sessions about 3.5, 4 hours. And then the Pro Connect, which is what's talking to the camera and firing everything, you can go probably 3 sessions, a day and a half, 2 days, but then you need to charge it. So that's the charging part. Let's hear what else. Oh yeah, another thing that's really important, a good friend of mine, Chuck, reminded us about, is that we have the focus distance memory lock. Way too much coffee this morning and up too early. So why would you use that memory lock? I normally don't use it, but why would I use it? Well, this is, real simple. So you're photographing auto area F, and you've got a Hummer, and it's this, let's just say it's right here, okay? Then all of a sudden, it's going back and forth the feeder, and then you focus on it, and then all of a sudden the last time it goes, and it's gone. And the AF sensor's got nothing to lock onto. Sometimes, because these guys are faster than grease lightning, there's sometimes they go like, they're gone out of the frame. The camera says, hey, what do you want me to focus on? And it goes, and it goes to the background. And it, gone. Well, the memory lock button, and I like to use the one, you can't really see it. It's right under the neoprene right here, the lens coat. I set that memory lock button, so when I press the button here, the focus comes back to where I've been focusing. Now, remember I said 9.2. That's the very front flower that they're going into. I will focus past that, normally around 9.8 to 11 feet. It says 11 feet. It's not actually 11 feet. And I will manually focus. And then you press the button on the side of the barrel. It says memory lock. You hold it until you see the little icon inside the viewfinder. It says boink, registered. There's a little arrow and it says focus. You know it's now been registered. And then to quickly, when the lens goes out to infinity, just hit that button. Boink, you're right back to where you want. You don't have to change anything because you want to minimize how much movement you have your hands when the Hummer's coming and going. I mean, seriously, it has gotten that simple, that quick. Now, another question I know someone's going to ask is, that bad boy, Z9, does 20 frames per second. What about them flashes? No problemo, man. These suckers, they go like crazy. I mean, your Hummingbird be like that, and you're just cranking 60, 80 shots, and all of a sudden, poof, Hummingbird dies. No, I'm kidding. It just does the perfect exposure the entire time. And remember, exposure is for color. These aren't even at full power. They're not even at half power. They're less than that. No problem. You have a lightning bolt inside that tells you your charge ready to go. So I'm doing 20 frames per second, aperture priority, ISO 800 to 1600, 4.2 to about 5.1 on the flashes. Ready to rock and roll. That's it for the technical side of Hummingbird photography. Let's talk about the biological side.